I am going to, good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday to you. I'm going to get started in just a second. Got to get my coffee on, and we'll go ahead and get a few other little tidy things out the way. There are some people here who are pre-oping for surgery and all that, and who are just getting here to get their nutrition class. I'm going to try something different today. I got a resounding, a little disappointing to me, but I'm good with it. People told me to cut it short. So we're going to cut it short today. So I'm going to give you the bare basics today. At the end of this, at the end of this talk, I'm going to concentrate on one particular disease process. The disease process we're going to concentrate on is for um, some people I found out that just that are having trouble with this disease, and it's an autoimmune process. It's rheumatoid arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, things of that nature that in the field of medicine we don't know a whole lot about. Now, rheumatologists know a lot about it, but there are not enough rheumatologists out there. And a lot of the training that we get is okay, fine, you have this problem. We don't have a lot of clear data on it, but we got some drugs for it. I'm going to show you the problems with that particular process that are going on through our mind. So get your coffee. I'm going to see, make sure when you come in, you turn your microphone off and all that so we don't hear your personal things going on in your life. Okay. So this is my coffee this morning. This is my second cup of coffee, and I didn't get decaffeinated, which is a problem. But a second cup of coffee, and I have a certain amount of fiber in there. I put this kind of fiber in there, and I want you to as well. It's called triple fiber. It used to have four products on it, but you can see it has inulin, it has acacia, and it has psyllium husk. It used to have chia seeds in it. Not sure why they took it out, but because I like it was called 4-in-1. Now it's just called triple fiber. So you can get this off of Amazon. But this is all going to come together towards the end. I'm going to show you why we need certain types of fiber. Now, I hear you talking out there. I hear you saying, listen, Doc, I get my fiber. I get my asparagus. I get my lentils. I get my onions and my leeks. I get that every day. It's not a problem, right? But it is important as to how much you get. Quantity does matter. Perfect example. You got high blood pressure or you have something else. Your doctor gives you a medicine. If that doesn't control your high blood pressure, what do you think the doctor's going to do? It's going to up the dose, right? So the dose matters. The dose matters because we can say, yeah, I get my leeks, I get my onions, I get my asparagus, I get my broccoli, and I do that every day. But if you add all those together, it doesn't give us the dose that we need in order for us to accomplish what we want to accomplish. What do we want to accomplish? We want to do several things. We want to keep our gut healthy, and we'll talk about that. And the second thing we want to do is actually increase our ability to activate our own GLP-1. GLP-1, what is that? GLP-1 is the Mounjaro, the Ozempic, the Wegovy that we're buying for $1,000 a month. They're bringing the price down to around about $500 a month, which is cool, which is where it needs to be done. But we're going to talk about some of the advantages and the disadvantages of those drugs as well. As a matter of fact, I'm going to open up the chat box early. I'm going to ask you some questions, as well as I want you to ask me some questions. But open up your chat box and talk to me or talk to the whole group and let me know who has tried the new weight loss medicines, the GLP-1s. GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like polypeptide 1, all right? So I want to know who out there who's tried Ozempic, who's tried Wegovy, who's tried semaglutide, who's tried Mounjaro. No judgment. We're just going to basically just talk about it, okay? And then we're going to tell you what GLP-1 does. But rather than me getting off a bunch of tangents, the two things that I'm going to talk about this morning are going to be what I want you to eat, why I want you to eat that, and then we're going to talk about that disease process, the autoimmune disease process that's giving people a lot of problems, and they're scratching their head. Why do I have it? Do I have a certain gene? Is it in my family? Well, in my family, it is. Because we have back pain. We have spondylosis arthritis. We have rheumatoid arthritis. We have psoriatic arthritis. So we have those different types of arthritis that nobody seems to be able to put a finger on. And sometimes they'll just throw it into a general group, say we have fibromyalgia. We just don't know the cause of that, but we have a drug that we can treat it with, right? Well, we do know the cause of it, and I'm gonna show you what the latest and the greatest information about that is. And it's just not enough information getting out there about how we can treat it, how we can possibly cure it, primarily because those things don't make money. Eating good whole foods doesn't make the pharmaceutical companies a lot of money. Eating the right amount of fiber doesn't make the pharmaceutical companies a lot of money. So there's no return on the investment when you're eating right and you're getting your microbiome. Remember that term? You're getting your microbiome in check. You get it in order. And that has a lot to do with what we're going to be talking about now. Okay. So let me look at the chat box and see who has tried um, these medicines. Yes, but I was interested. I have. Yes, yes, yes. Tirzepatide, Wegovy. Neither of them work for me. I haven't, not me. I haven't, but wanted to. Okay. So I think that those drugs are good for certain people. I think if you're overweight, not a BMI 30 yet. There are some studies out there that show that BMI 30s do okay. And they may very well, but if you're overweight, you have 20 pounds to lose, you have 40 pounds to lose, uh, probably is a good drug for you. But they're saying that you have to stay on it for a long period of time. So we have a lot of study, tens of studies that show that if you come off of it, almost everybody will regain the weight. And it's logical because you're giving yourself exogenous GLP-1. And that exogenous GLP-1 is telling your body, hey, you don't need to produce GLP-1 because I got this for you. I'm going to produce your GLP-1 for you. I'm going to give it to you in the form of a shot every week. And it does. You get taken in the form of a shot, so your body's GLP-1 goes to sleep. Then you stop taking it, and you say, okay, fine, I stopped taking it because I don't eat anymore. It's not working as much as I thought it was. I'm not losing as much weight, or I'm getting sick from it. So you stop taking it. Then you're expecting your own GLP-1 to bounce back. It won't do it. It won't bounce back right away. It eventually will bounce back, but sometimes in my patients and in some of the literature out there, it takes around about 3 to 6 months before it bounces back. What happens in that 3 to 6 months before your own GLP-1 takes over? You gain the weight. You gain more weight than you lost. So we're going to talk about, is it worth it? Okay. All right. All right. So first of all, let me go and see if I can get technologically my slides going. So I am going to try to adhere to what two patients told me in the office today when I was doing their stress test. I said, Doc, cut the time down. Cut all the confabulation out. And I'm going to try to do that today. Sometimes I like confabulation, but I'm good with that. All right. So let me see if I can go to the PowerPoint slide presentation here. I think you all can see that it said the first slide says protein, fiber, and healthy fats. Give me in the chat, see if you can see that part. And let me see if I can on the screen sharing. Nobody said anything in the chat box yet. So I'm not sure if you can see it. All right, am I still on? Can you see that slide there? Everybody's going to sleep all of a sudden. Okay. So you're going to see something down on the bottom of it that says the words that's like the words that are coming out of my mouth are in Spanish, but you can understand it, and some of my Spanish speaking people can understand it as well. All right, so before we get started, I just want to know if you know how much fiber you're supposed to be taking in every day. How much fiber did you take in yesterday? So just because I don't see a whole lot of going on in the chat box right now, and I just want to make sure that this is working. How many grams of fiber did you take in yesterday? And then for those who know, how many grams of fiber are you supposed to take in every single day? Okay. So apparently my chat box is not working because I'm not seeing y'all's reply. Let me just check it out. Make sure. Is everyone able to hear me? Because I am not seeing anything in the chat box.
We can hear you.
Okay. Can you see the chat box?
There are a lot of people responding in your chat. Yes.
Very good. That sounds like God. Okay. All righty. So again, I can't see, but anyway, what I want is to just kind of close it and open it back up. Okay. So it needed to be refreshed, I guess. And there was, I never thought that it needed to be refreshed. All right. So if somebody put in there 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight, that's the amount of protein that I want you to take in. So I want to make sure we get all that straight. So the amount of fiber that you need to take in every single day uh, is indeed a little different. Hold on just 1 second. Let's make sure. I have to make sure I get my other propped items. Okay. So the amount of fiber that you need to take in every single day, 25 grams for females and 45 grams for males. Okay. So what I'm saying to you is that if you're thinking that I'm getting my fiber because I'm getting my asparagus, I'm getting my leeks, my onions, I'm getting my cauliflower, that's my fiber. I'm taking my salads in, and that has a lot of fiber in it as well. Well, it doesn't. It doesn't have a whole lot of fiber. It has 2, 3 grams. You need in women, you need 25 grams. In men, you need 40 grams, 40 to 45 grams. If you're not getting that, you're missing out on certain things that I'm just getting ready to show you. So today we're going to be talking about protein, fiber, and healthy fats. Remember those three macronutrients that we're going to be talking about. Because protein, fiber, and healthy fats have a purpose in our lives, especially if we're trying to lose fat. Now, I don't want to talk about losing weight because everybody's getting on their scale every morning and saying, I did good today. I lost 2 pounds. Well, we don't know 2 pounds of what. So we'll get into that as well. Because one of the problems is that I have people coming back to the office after surgery, sometimes years after surgery, and they say, Doc, I'm maintaining my weight loss. We put them on this scale, the BIA scale. As, and basically, we're measuring the amount of muscle, the amount of visceral fat, the amount of subcutaneous fat, the amount of bone, and the amount of water in their bodies. And sometimes a year later, the amount of fat has not decreased, but the amount of weight has. What does that mean? It means that they've lost weight, but they've lost weight in the form of the other products that constitute weight. The product that weighs the most in your body is muscle mass. So you have four components of your weight. So when you get on the scale in the morning, and we're going to talk about whether I want you to get one of these fancy scales or not. They're a little pricey, so I'm not going to push that way, but there are other ways that you can manage that without the pricey scales. But if you lose, you have four components. You have muscle mass, you have water mass, you have bone mass, and lastly, you have fat mass. All we want to lose is the fat. The fat is the stuff that's putting out the cytokines that's causing our systems to be altered to the way we want to correct. That's causing us to get sick. When we lose muscle mass, we've taken several steps backwards for several reasons. But we're leaving the fat in place and we're taking out our metabolic engine. Our muscle is our metabolic engine. Now, obviously, we can lose water weight as well, but most people keep up with their water. Bone is one of the last things to go. It takes years in order to have some bone loss. So when we're losing weight and you get back on the scale, and that scale says you weigh less, but you get on my scale and I say, well, your amount of visceral fat is the same. That means you've lost muscle mass. And that's important because if you got the same amount of visceral fat, the inflammatory fat inside your intestinal area wrapped around your pancreas, wrapped around your kidneys, wrapped around your spleen, wrapped around your muscles in your heart and all that. When you got that same amount of fat and you've lost your metabolic engine, your muscle mass, not only are you not healthier, you're less healthy than you were on the day that I first saw you. Okay. All right. So I'm going to continue to go. Let's start with one of a perfect example of what it is I'm talking about. Okay. So this is the person that you've seen on Facebook a lot, the Facebook ads. She's gone from 350 pounds at her ideal body weight. It was about 180. The book says 150, but because of her bone structure and all that, we don't want to get her down to 150. 180 is a sweet spot. Right in here, she's gone from 350. She lost 150 pounds right here, and so she's lost 150 pounds, so she's down to 200, right? All right, so so we had an interview with her a couple of weeks ago, actually a little bit more longer than that, and this is how that interview went. Okay. Let me stop that for a second. This is an interview of the bloopers. So we're in between takes. I did the interview, and then in between the takes of the interview, I started asking her some questions because she came to see me for a particular reason, not only for the interview.
What's your favorite meal and why? Mm,
Say Taco Bell, baby.
no, I like Italian food, I like seafood. And so I love lobster. It's so yummy.
This is not going on. I want to order it is.
I was like, I love lobster.
You said when you started off wrong, it's Italian food.
It's so bad, but I like, I don't eat a lot of pasta, because it's too heavy. It's too heavy. There's certain things I just cannot eat after the surgery. It's just too heavy.
What Italian food we talking about?
Huh?
What Italian food?
What Italian food?
Pizza?
I love pizza.
Oh, Lord.
I do. It's my favorite.
Oh.
Pizza is my favorite.
Oh, Lord.
Look,
We got some ways to go there.
We do, because pizza is my favorite.
Oh, Lord.
So if I have to have it, I tell you what I do.
We ain't gotta have it.
I know. And look, it's so rare, but it's like I like maybe once every 3 or 4 months I have it. This is what I do. This is what I tell my mind. I order the Domino's thin crust pizza. I do. And because it's like eating crackers. So I feel like if I don't have the big slice, then I'm doing myself good. And it's like 2 or 3 pieces of the thin crust. It's like crackers, and that's my fix, and I'm done. I know, so bad. I'm messing up my GL, oh man.
I could probably.
And cheeses. I can't eat cheeses anymore. I can't not eat cheese. I tried to eat some cheeses, Dr. Duncan, and it was like 2 or 3 cheeses, because cheeses, because at my school we eat, right?
Cheese.
Yeah, my GOP is always. Because I've been getting hungry.
Yeah.
And I can always tell when I gain weight right here in my stomach.
Yeah.
Right here I can tell. And I like cook. All of a sudden now, since I'm eating better, I'm enjoying trying cooking new different types of meals and stuff, but I don't eat them. My mom was like, this show is good. Girl, yeah. I said, girl, TikTok recipe, girl. Like Brazilian cheese bread. I am a master.
Really?
At Brazilian cheese bread.
But you don't eat it.
No. don't eat it. And everybody's like, as soon as that shit can ready to come out the oven, girl, you need to call me. Because I'm coming, because you can't eat that shit. I'm coming. And just
all right, sounds good. We got some training to do. All right.
okay.
All right.
So we gonna go up there and we gonna get my GLP-1 right.
All right. So there she is. She came to me primarily, and she had lost 150 pounds. So she went from 350 down to 200 pounds. But she came to me there, and you saw as she got up, or when she was sitting down, she says, well, I can tell when I gain weight because I gain it right here. Well, she was telling me the story. She was telling me she had gained weight. And in fact, she had got down to 200. And when she came back to the office for this particular interview, she was 225. Now, mind you, her body weight we were trying to get her down to was 20 pounds less than what she is when you see her in this picture. So down to 180, but she got down to 200 and then she regained. So opening the chat box again, what did she do wrong? Pretty simple, straightforward, low-hanging fruit there. What did she do wrong as far as, and it's not wrong, it's something that we're all going to trip up. We're all going to trip up and we're all going to do it. I'm just going to educate you as to when it will be a good time that you can go back to not necessarily cheeses, but am I going to take away bread from you for the rest of your life? Not really. I'd like to, but there are certain refined carbohydrates that I would love to take away from you for the rest of your life. And I'll tell you what those are. But are you going to ever be able to have a piece of pizza or a piece of birthday cake? Absolutely. Because of the thing that's in those things are refined carbohydrates and seed oils. And those things contain what's called linoleic acid. I'm not going to get too technical, I promise, I hope. But the linoleic acid is something that is called an essential fatty acid. So what does that mean? We need it. We need it. Now we get our share of it. We get around about 82, 85 grams a day because we're taking cheeses, we're taking bread, we're taking pasta, we're taking Snickers bars. We're taking a lot of that stuff. Back in the good old days when we got it from beef tallow, ghee, and animal fats and plant fats, those are the good fats, and those, like in the olive oil, the avocados, and things of that nature, those are the good fats. They did contain the essential fatty acid called linoleic acid. So linoleic acid is not taboo. Don't let me let you think that it is taboo. It is not. It is good for you. It is just like everything else. When you take too much of it, it's dangerous to you. It's bad for you. It turns off of certain things in our body. It destroys our mitochondria. And we'll kind of briefly touch on that, but I'm trying to stay on the timeline here. So in the chat box, she ate the Cheez-Its. Yeah, too many carbs, types of foods. So right, you're right. So she got down to 150 pounds, and I applaud her for that, and I'm grateful for that she was able to do it. And she came back to me and said, "Doc, I need help." She wanted to know if this drug would help her. And I have some mixed emotions about that. But my goal is to activate her own GLP-1, reactivate it. Because, like I just mentioned to you before, if I was to give her exogenous GLP-1 in the form of a shot every week, she would suppress her own GLP-1. What that forces her to do is to stay on that drug that I give her for the rest of her life. The whole point of her coming to me is to get off drugs. She had problems with her knees and other problems, high blood pressure and things of that nature that she wanted to get off drugs. We got her off those drugs. The last thing that I want to do is put her back on another one that she's dependent upon. So that's part of the thing that I want to tell you is that, yeah, I'll put you on the drug. I'll put you on a micro dose to kind of get you jump started. But the micro dose that I put you on, if you stalled or if you began to regain your weight, I'm not going to put you on the incremental doses because that's going to suppress your own GLP-1. And I'm not going to even put you on the micro dose for a long period of time. I'm going to put you on the microdose just to give your own body's ability to regenerate its own GLP-1. If I put you on the full dose, your body will never come back. So I'm going to put you on this microdose for a little while. If you stall, she stalled, just to incorporate what GLP-1 does. Now remember this, what does GLP-1 do? Why we're so excited about this GLP-1. I'm excited about it. I'm just excited about your own GLP-1. So GLP-1 does three things, and it does it very well. Number one, it increases satiety. Satiety, what is that? Well, it makes you feel full on smaller amounts of food. All right. So take it if I gave you a lap band and you're going to only eat a small amount. You're going to eat a boiled egg. With that lap band, you're going to feel full. And you're going to feel full after you eat that egg. And you say, whoa, I'm stuffed. It's a cool thing because that egg doesn't have enough calories in order for you to stay in life the rest of the day. That egg has what, 45, 50 calories? You need 2,000 calories for your body weight, even 3,000 calories, depending upon how much you weigh. And so you're way off the number of calories your body needs to survive. That's on purpose. Where do we have calories stored? Oh, somebody's trying to call. Hold on just a sec. Somebody's trying to call and say, how do I get on the webinar? So hopefully one of my staff here that'll answer that. So we have calories stored in our fat. So for us folks who have excess calories, excess fat that we want to get rid of, that's the perfect setup. Putting the lab band on, right? But the problem is that once that boiled egg gets through that little small pouch above the lab band, and it gets into that big empty stomach, you're hungry again. So it takes about an hour to do that. So in an hour, you're hungry again, you eat again. So that's why we've kind of shied away from the lab band. Fast forward to the gastric bypass, the gastric sleeve, the duodenal switch, we've set up a safety net. What is that safety net? That safety net is that you're going to get full on a small amount of food because we're going to make a small pouch, just like the lap band. But once that food gets through that pouch of the sleeve or the gastric bypass, it then hits some things in our intestinal tract called the L cells. Those L cells in your small bowel, in your lower part of your small bowel, and in your colon are things that actually secrete your own GLP-1. So if you ever wonder where your GLP-1 comes from, it comes from your intestinal tract. The majority of it comes from your intestinal tract. In your upper part of your small bowel, in the lower part of your small bowel, it's more dense, means that you get a greater release of GLP-1 when you get to that area, and then your colon is even more dense and you get a greater release of GLP-1. So we want that. We want a greater release of our GLP-1 because number one, it increases our satiety. We eat a small amount of food and we're full. A good thing, because now our body says, you didn't give me enough calories. I got to go get the fat, which is what we want. All right. Number two, it actually increases your metabolism. So I just took the number out of the air saying you every day need a calories, 2,000 calories a day. Now you probably need more, but you need 2,000 calories a day in order for your heart, your lungs, your brain, your kidneys, your spleen to get through the day, in order for your body to function, in order for you to survive. And so you need that 2,000 calories regardless of what you put into your mouth. And basically, if I increase your GLP-1, it's going to bump it up. So number two, it increases your basal metabolic rate. So instead of needing 2,000 calories, you need 2,500 calories. Why is that good? Because you're going to burn more fat. Your body needs more energy. It needs 2,500 rather than 2,000. So it's going to go into your fat stores and get that. Now, obviously, that's a problem for people who don't have excess fat stores. So they can't do what we're doing. All right. Because they don't have the excess fat stores. I'm not talking to those folks who have a good lean body mass and all that. I'm talking to folks who have an excess amount of fat that they got to burn. And number three, what it does, and most importantly, for me at least, and hopefully for you, is that it gets rid of our cravings. My apple pie, my cheesecake, my Wendy's French fries, those things I thought that I just couldn't live without having at least once or twice a week. Now I don't even think about it. So GLP-1's third effect is it decreases cravings. It blocks our mesolimbic system, our receptors in our mesolimbic system, which secretes dopamine, our pleasure hormone. And as you well know, or hopefully you do, that many food engineers are putting other things into foods to stimulate our dopamine release so that we get excited and pleasure from eating food. Now, I don't mind having a good meal, but to get it to where it's almost addictive is something kind of weird with that, kind of wrong with that. So I don't like that strategy. But that GLP-1, whether you get it from your own body or whether you get it from a shot, actually blocks that. So you'll say, I don't have that same taste for that cheesecake. That pizza, I don't have to have it. Yeah, yeah, you go ahead and enjoy. I don't have to have it right now. That's a good thing because that keeps your body going. So I got to get you there to and get you increase your GLP-1. Now, the title of this slide that I first showed you is it says protein, fiber, and healthy fats. So now I'm going to pull all this together. We're going to hopefully go on. So this is the protein, the fiber, and this to some people when I put this up, it looks boring. Oh, brunch and dinner. We're going to eat 2 meals a day. We're going to have some eggs and some turkey sausages. We're going to have some salmon and some avocado. We're going to have some eggs Benedict. All this is protein, and it has a little bit of fiber on the plate as well. So your protein and your fiber. Notice what it does not have is starchy vegetables. It doesn't have a baked potato, macaroni and cheese. It doesn't have pasta. It doesn't have those things that can actually do something that I'm going to show you. Okay. So those those are boring if you're used to all those exotic other things like the refined carbohydrates and the seed oils being mixed in there. And we'll tell you what seed oils are in just a minute. But they're not boring once I turn on your GLP-1. This is just food. You've lost the pleasure aspect of it. Okay. So you're going to have steak and asparagus. So you're going to have some eggs and turkey bacon or beef bacon, eggs and bacon here. All right. So that's not that boring to me. So this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to basically decrease the caloric intake by making a small pouch. This is how bariatric surgery works. But that's not the end of it. We've got to activate those GLP-1 cells because that is indeed our safety net. Our safety net is the GLP-1. After the food gets through our small pouch, we're going to feel hungry again, right? Not necessarily with the bypass or with the sleeve or with the dual switch. We're not going to necessarily feel hungry again because we've just taken that food, which is a very, very powerful stimulant to our L cells. I'm going to show you. So we're going to get increased GLP-1 secretion, and it's going to increase our satiety, making you feel full on smaller amounts of food. It's going to increase your caloric needs, so you go burn more fat, primarily because it has an ability to increase your basal metabolic rate. And then it takes away your mesolimbic system where you get so much pleasure out of eating food. Food becomes a means to an end. It becomes what you do in order to survive that day. And that's how we really want to look at food. We're not going to take away your enjoyment of family and friends going out to have a meal. We're just going to take away the pleasure that you get. Oh, I got to get that cheesecake, or I got to get that baked potato, or I got to get that warm bread. You're not going to have that. You're still going to have the pleasure of family and friends around, but you're not going to have it's centered around the type of food that you're eating. That makes sense. All right. So this is the three things that it does. Now, this is what I'm talking about. All right. This is where we're going to pull, meet the rubber to the road. In this area here are these yellow cells. This is a medical illustration. This is not accurate, but because you don't have the concentration of L cells like this. It's not that many. In the small bowel, that's the first that it comes to. You have very few, if any, L cells in your stomach. All right, then you got this part is the duodenum, this part is the small bowel. I want to stimulate those L cells because they stimulate GLP-1. Okay. And so this is our first hit. Now, later on down the road, down into the lower part of this part of the bowel, you have 16 feet of this part of the bowel. When you get to foot 14 and 15, you have a greater concentration of these L cells. And the greater concentration of these L cells mean that you're going to put out more. So what can I do in order to increase my L cells? Well, these things are responsive to food. To food. And the ones that are in the small bowel are responsive to protein. So you eat your protein first. The order in which you eat your food is important. It's not, you're not going to end in the world if you don't take it in the order, but it is important. And it also is important if you eat that steak or if you eat that eggs as protein, and then you eat a carbohydrate along with it, like orange juice or some pancakes along with it, you've kind of destroyed the effect of this food because the refined carbohydrates in the seed oils affect these yellow cells, these GLP-1 cells differently. It turns them off. So you don't want to try to stimulate them and turn them off. If the pancakes hit it first, you turned it off. So the protein ain't gonna do a thing for it. Okay. There's a lot of biochemistry behind that, but I don't want to bore you with that. So just trust me when I say seed oils and refined carbohydrates turn your GLP-1 levels off. So you basically don't get any stimulation of your satiety, of your basal metabolic rate, and of your desire to eat certain types of foods. You don't get any of those effects, okay? So protein first, all right? Then later on down in the small intestinal tract, let me see. So what we do, I'm just going to briefly explain this to you, is that we take those L cells that were most dense down in the lower part of the bowel. Like I said, this is not an accurate depiction because you don't have this many L cells up here, but you do have L cells. So they get more dense as you go down lower into the small bowel, sort of like this picture shows here. This is that lower part of the small bowel. During the operation of a gastric bypass, we go get that lower part of the small bowel and we put it next to that small pouch. That's the gastric bypass. So what we're trying to do is decrease the amount of food you can take in by decreasing the size. That's calories in versus calories out. You only eat an egg and you're full. But once that egg goes through, in an intact stomach, you're hungry again. But in a stomach that actually brings up the L cells from the lower part of the intestinal tract, you stimulate those L cells with this protein. So what are you going to get? You're going to get the three things that GLP-1 do. You're going to increase your own GLP-1 production. No shots, no injections. You're increasing your own GLP-1 itself. Now, you're not getting it to the extent that they're giving it to you in a shot form. The shot form has to go through your skin, through your subcutaneous tissue, to your veins, and has to go to a longer pathway. What you're stimulating here directly. And if I get further and further down the pathway of this small bowel, I'm going to get more release of my GLP-1. Now, fiber. Fiber has a couple of roles. Fiber also is the thing that actually stimulates the GLP-1 in the lower part of the small bowel. The fiber is responsible for stimulating the GLP-1 further down. So you're going to take protein and fiber. You're going to have your eggs and some avocado. It's your fiber in there. You're going to have your steak or your salmon and a salad, some fiber in there with some onions and some leeks and some things that are actually going to get you fiber in your intestinal tract. When you do that, you stimulated this upper part with the protein. You stimulate the lower part that has more L cells with the fiber. And it's just not, okay, fine, just a little bit of fiber. It has to be the amount of fiber that we just talked about. 25 grams per day in a woman and 40 grams a day in a man. If you don't do that, you won't get the full benefit of the effects. You'll survive, you just won't thrive. Then lastly, the healthy fats. Now, this is just a simplified demonstration because the healthy fats will work in the lower part of the small bowel and they work in the colon. So you're bringing bile acids, and I won't get into the details of it, into that area and into the area of your colon. It basically stimulates the release of GLP-1 in the colon by increasing the excitability of your cells in your colon. I'm pausing now because I don't want to get too deep into the weeds. But suffice it to say, protein acts in the small bowel here. It works in other places too, but primarily I'm going to tell you it works in the small bowel. And in the lower part of the small bowel, that's when the protein and the fiber kicks in. And then in that last part of the bowel, the colon, is where the L cells really get dense and the healthy fats contribute as well. So protein, fiber, and healthy fats. Now, you know that, right? So you know that now. You know you got to take a certain amount of protein. And you got to take, well, as somebody mentioned in the chat box, you got to take a gram. If you're exercising and all, which you have to do, you got to take a gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight, anywhere between 0.75 grams to 1 gram. So if you weigh 150 pounds, you need to take in 150 grams. We almost never do that. And that's a problem because, again, we have to maintain muscle mass. And the muscle is the last place that our dietary protein is going to go. We have other places, other categories of organ systems in our body, of systems in our body that the protein has to go to first. It has to go to the hundreds of thousands of enzymes that we're making every single day. It has to go to our immune system. It has to go to making our neurotransmitters that affects our mood, our 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 norepinephrine, our epinephrine. All these kind of begin with tyrosine or tryptophan. So we've got to have that first. Then we got to have the repair proteins. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 categories that the protein that we take into our mouth has to go to first in order to survive. The last place it goes is to our muscle mass, to our nails, to our hair, and to our skin. That's the last place it goes. All right. So if we're constantly every single day cheating the amount of protein, we'll never get it to go to our muscle mass. So we're thinking that, yeah, we're losing muscle mass because we age. We're losing muscle mass primarily because we chronically don't take enough in every single day. I ask every patient I ask, are you taking 150 grams, which is probably the minimum. You got to take over 100 because everybody weighs 100 pounds, right? So probably everybody here weighs over 150 pounds. I do. So the minimum amount that I want people to take in is 150 grams. Are you taking that in? No, no, no. What do we take in? Well, I took in this and I took in this. Okay, that gave me 60 grams. Okay, I took in a couple boiled eggs. Okay, that gave me another 90 grams. We don't quite get the amount of protein we need. And the reason is because nobody's told us that we have to supplement, especially after the surgery, because I'm going to decrease the amount of food that you take in with every meal. I don't care if you take in 5 meals a day, you probably through Whole Foods won't get the amount of protein that you need because you're taking in much, much, much smaller amounts. So you got to supplement. You got to take the protein shakes. Won't get into that today, but we got to take the protein shakes. I'll tell you what kind that I like you to take, but one has to be a whey protein isolate, WHEY. This is the one that I just happen to have here. Whey protein isolate, $30 for this whole thing. Okay. Then the second one, I don't have it here on my second one is a casein protein because our muscle maintenance and our muscle growth occurs at night when our melatonin is up. So it occurs at night. And so we want to give the body the building blocks to replenish our protein stores in our muscle at night. Muscle is so important. And again, it's not because we are aging that we're losing, it's because we're chronically not taking in the appropriate number of grams. And at some point in time, the body doesn't get its amount of protein, so it steals it. So where does it steal it from? Well, it can't steal it from the enzymes because they got to have the enzymes in order to survive. It can't steal it from the immune system. We got to have our immune system. So we got to have those things. And so basically it says, what's the least thing that I need? Muscle. So it steals it from the muscle. It steals it from the hair. You come to me and you say, Doc, my hair is getting a little bit brittle. I'm losing some hair. Every time I brush, I see some increased amount of hair. That's because the protein in that hair, the protein in those nails, the protein in your skin, the protein in your muscle is useful protein. So if you only get 60, 70, 80 grams a day and you need 150 grams, it's going to rob it from your muscle mass and your skin mass and your nails, things of that nature. So just trying to pull this all together so you kind of get a big picture here. So we need that amount of protein. Just like when your doctor gives you a blood pressure medicine, you need a certain dose. If that dose is not the correct amount of dose, your blood pressure won't be controlled. With the amount of protein, you need a certain dose. If you don't get that dose of protein every single day, or you don't get that dose of fiber every single day, it's not gonna control the systems that we're talking about. Okay. All right, so let's see if we can continue on here. All right, this is that lower part of the small bowel that I was talking about. So here's the colon here, all right? So in this area here, you have an increased density of L cells. What we want to do is increase the stimulation of these L cells, increase the stimulation of these L cells to get more GLP-1 to do the three things that we had talked about, okay? So in summary, the protein acts in this first part of the small bowel. The fiber, and I'm oversimplified, so don't criticize me, all you scientists out there. The fiber acts in this part of the small bowel and this part of the bowel, the colon, as well as the healthy fats. Okay? So And then the other important thing is to remember the young lady that was on the video, is to recognize that once you take in that fiber and you take in something along with that, that these cells are sensitive to. What are they sensitive to? They're sensitive to the things that aren't healthy for them. They're sensitive to the seed oils and the refined carbohydrates, and they stop working. So you regain the weight. So she has some Cheez-Its. She had some, she had some bread that I don't know what kind of bread she called it, but she had some bread that she says she's the best bread maker. So you know she tried it. So and again, it just requires education because she didn't know. I'm not sure if she's on the webinar today, but she didn't know, and you don't know what you don't know. So this whole point of this webinar is to educate you so that you will get tidbits. You're not going to learn everything today. As a matter of fact, 60% of what I'm telling you today is going to go in one ear and out the other. You got to continue to come back, just like you got to continue to go to school when you're in elementary school and junior high school and high school and college. You got to go to school every single day in order to learn. And sometimes you got to repeat doses of the same information over and over and over again until it's stuck. So this has got to stick, all right? Because I'm seeing it very often, the weight regain following bariatric surgery or weight regain in general. All right. Sleeve does the same thing. The difference is the sleeve getting it down to this part of the small bowel when you eat protein is that now with 90% of your stomach gone, 80 to 90% of your stomach gone, it doesn't sit in the stomach very long. Because once we eat a meal in the stomach that we have now, if you haven't had the surgery, it can sit in the stomach for 2 to 6 hours. So none of it is getting down here in the appropriate fashion. All right. So you're taking your protein, you need heat, and it's getting digested in your stomach, sitting there for 2 to 6 hours, and it's not getting into your L cells there because there are not a whole lot of L cells in your stomach. All right. When I take this 90% of the stomach off, it doesn't sit in there for 2 to 6 hours. It only sits there for 30 minutes, 20, 30 minutes. And then it goes down and it stimulates your L cells. Okay. All right. On the lap band, that's why it doesn't work. The lap band doesn't work because it makes you feel full with one boiled egg here. But then once it digests in an hour and gets through that part of the stomach and gets into this part of the stomach, you got a total empty stomach. The stomach says, hey, the ghrelin up here says, hey, you didn't feed me. All you gave me was a boiled egg. I'm hungry again. Your ghrelin turns on, it goes way up. So in our studies, that we did with the lap band, and one of the reasons we don't use it as much is that the ghrelin went up. So people began to get hungry an hour later, 2 hours later, and they began to eat, and they were eating all day long. Now, some people don't do that. That there's about 10 to 15% of the people that do quite well with the lap band. But I don't want to take that odds of 80% of the people or 90% of the people and putting the lap band in those people and then rolling the dice and saying you'll probably lose weight. No. All right. So let me go ahead and finish this. This basically all these slides that I'm going through right now just kind of confirms in the literature what I'm talking about as far as your own L cells. These are studies that we've actually done on people who are getting ready to undergo gastric bypass. Your own L cells are turned off. Why? Because of the cheeses, because of the pizza, because of the bread, because of the macaroni and cheese, because of the cheesecakes, the apple pies, and all that. Those are sugars, refined carbohydrates, and seed oils. A double whammy, a triple whammy, if you will. But those ferociously turn off the L cells. And so when we measure the level of GLP-1 that your small bowel is producing, and we can measure that, we found in these studies that I'm showing here, we found that that amount of your GLP-1 production preoperatively before surgery was in the tank. It was so low we couldn't measure it in some cases. Okay. So that's what these basically show here. So these uh, if you can be stimulated by pictures, this picture shows that these are bright yellow when the L cells are functioning. But you put pizza, pasta, these bright yellow cells turn dim. They turn off. Okay. So we want to keep them turned on. So that's what we're trying to do. This is another slide. These are the things that I want you to stay away from. Now, after surgery, I have control of what you eat, at least for the first couple of months. because you got to report back to us and all that, unless you're from out of town. But we'll still keep in touch. All right. So look at this list, and you all know we always do this. I'm not going to do it today. What your Achilles heel is. You got bread, soda, white rice, sugary breakfast cereals. Mine was number 5, pastries and baked goods. I admit it. Now my GLP-1 is on, and I don't have a taste. I hadn't had a piece of cheesecake, and I don't know when. I hadn't had a piece of bread in years. I don't eat sandwiches anymore with the bread on it. I'll get a hamburger. I'll take the bread off. I'll eat just the meat, the potatoes, and the lettuce and the onions on it. It tastes good to me. So that's how we're going to do it. I'm going to have control of it for the first few months, but I want you to promise me this. I want you to give me a year. I know that sounds like a long time now, but once I stimulate your GLP-1, that year is going to go by just like it did with the young lady. It's going to go by pretty quick because I want you to go without eating some of these things, most of these things, for a year, preferably longer. And once it gets to a year, you tell me how you feel. Do you have the cravings? And so on and so forth. If you tell me that you have the cravings for the cheeses or the crackers or the cookies or the pizza, then I know that somebody offered it to you during your vulnerable phase. Just like any other disease process, when I operate on you, on your intestinal tract and all that, you got to have time to heal. And that time to heal, what I mean, the time to heal the tissue is only a couple, 4 to 6 weeks. The time to heal the body is a year, year and a half. If indeed you go back to eating pizza, pasta, rice, and things of that nature during that year of healing the body, it's just like going out and playing football again after you've broken your ankle or if you've broken your leg. It takes 4 to 6 weeks in order for that bone to heal. And you decide, well, I feel good now. I'm going to go back and play football after only a week or 2 weeks. It's not going to heal. That ankle, that knee, that bone in the leg is not going to heal properly. Okay, it'll heal properly, but it won't heal properly. Your body won't heal properly unless you give me a good year without these products. Now, I'm not hoping that's not too depressing for you, but you will find how easy it is to do that when we're activating our GLP-1 with protein, fiber, and healthy fats. So you may think that it's difficult, but I promise you, it is not that difficult if you're able to stay away from it because you're activating your own internal GLP-1 cells. It's cool. All right. So what are seed oils? Well, the seed oils are basically the soybean, the canola oil, the corn oil, the cottonseed oil, the sunflower oil, the safflower oil. And basically the most common thing that we're going to see on the side of our salad dressing bottles, on the side of that Cheez-Its, on the side of the potato chips, the pretzels, the first ingredient we're going to see is soybean oil. If it has that, put it back in the cabinet, or better yet, throw it away. The soybean oil, the canola oil, some controversy about it. That's why I have a question mark. The corn oil, you're not going to see a whole lot of these part, cottonseed oil. You will see them sometimes, sunflower oil, safflower oil, but the most common one we use today is soybean oil. What I want you to choose instead, olive oil. Same, does have linoleic acid, but it has it a lot less than soybean oil. Avocado oil. It does have linoleic acid, that essential fatty acid that we need. We need these seed oils. So don't get me wrong. I am not poo-pooing the idea of needing seed oils. I'm just saying we're taking in too much. We're taking in 40 times the amount. We only need 2 to 10 grams a day. We're taking in 80 grams a day. If I give you too much oxygen after surgery, that can be toxic to your body. If I give you too much water, water is a good thing in the right amount, correct? If I give you too much, what happens? It's dangerous. If I give you too much of anything, too much blood pressure medicine, it's dangerous. Too much of anything. So everything has to have its dose. Too little of it, not good. Too much of it is not good. Like the 3 bears, it has to be in the middle. That is that sweet spot. Okay, so I won't go into this too much. I'm going to wind up here. These are all the things with sunflower oil in it, soybean oil. This potato chips has the sunflower and cottonseed oil. So a lot of people eat potato chips. But these are the products. Now, you're going to say, okay, fine. What's the big deal about See, seed oils. Well, the problem is that the seed oils basically, I'm just going through these slides, so bear with me. I'm getting to what these seed oils will do. They do two things that we should be aware about. That one, they affect our mitochondria and they affect our junction of our intestinal. And again, when you see me pausing like this, it means that I'm getting ready to get too highly technical, so I'm going to back off. But anyway, this tight junction, think of your intestinal tract as the cells. This is a cell here, and this is a cell here, and it's joined together very, very tight. This space is not present. Okay. So what you're going to see is this. Can you see my eyes through that? No, you can't. But if I destroy that tight junction, you can begin to see my eyes, right? You can begin to see the spaces. Okay, so just keep that concept in mind because those spaces are not good because what lives on the inside of this area here in our intestinal tract are bacteria. Good bacteria, some bad bacteria. But bacteria are supposed to stay in their lane. And when we destroy the tight junctions and we make it leak, the bacteria are measured in microns, but the components of the bacterial wall, the lipopolysaccharide, LPS, I'm going down that pathway, aren't I? Those things are measured in nanograms. And so those get through there. I'm going to show you a picture in just a second. Those get through that tight junction. Those things cause an inflammatory response. And I'm getting ready to go into these autoimmune diseases, but let me just kind of finish this up real quick. So I'm sorry. These are the cells. They hug each other. There's no space in between these cells. None. So the bacteria here, when they shed their carcasses, their skin, their lipopolysaccharides, it stays in the stool. And where does it go? Into the toilet. That's where we want it to go. We want those bacteria to do their thing, secrete certain products that are good for us, but they only can do it effectively if they're in their environment, which is inside this colon. On the opposite side of this mucosal layer is our sterile system. We don't want these bacteria nor any of their components getting into that area because bad things will happen. What kind of bad things? The body recognizes, oh, we got an intruder. I got to alert the immune system. I got to activate tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukin 1, interleukin 6, interleukin 17 and 23. I got to get those things corralled and put a bubble around them, put the macrophages so it doesn't do any more destruction. That's good and bad. You're actually taking something that's damaging and you're corralling it, but it's chronic inflammation. And inflammation is one of our culprits. So let's take it here. This is the bacteria. This is actually a live photograph, electron microscopy of inside the intestinal tract, which is here. And inside here, you see all these little different color rods. That's our microbiome. The microbiome is diverse. It has different colors. It's happy doing this thing. It's making a byproduct. So these things are called probiotics. Bacteria equals probiotics. Pausing again, right? So probiotics are the bacteria. They have to be fed prebiotics. What are prebiotics? The fiber, the inulin, the acacia, the psyllium husk, the chia seeds, the onions, the leeks, all those things feed these things and they're happy. Then they produce butyrate, which makes that environment even better. This green wall here is important because that helps keep these things in their lane, keeps them in the colon. And when they make stuff that we don't want, we flush it down the toilet. The danger if it gets over here, primarily because this is the sterile area of the body. We don't want it to get here. So we have that nice mucous membrane to separate it. All right. So these things are stimulated by fiber. As long as we feed it, you'll have happy-go-lucky bacteria that are doing all kinds of things, including what we're getting ready to talk about for the next 10 minutes or so, is the rheumatoid arthritis, the ankylosing spondylitis, those things that are earmarked by an excessive amount of inflammation and an excessive amount of something just stimulated this immune system to turn on. Okay, so what we want to do is make these things nice and happy and healthy. And when they are happy and healthy, they even build this wall up even thicker. So this is the dam. This is on this side of the dam, we've got this. We've got a nice tight junctions. Tight junctions. When these things get out of whack, it's just like somebody renting your apartment or renting your house. These are the people that will take care of your house. You'll come back and say, oh, they took care of a house. Everything is nice and clean. You get some disruptors in there, some bad bacteria. You'll come home and say, there are holes in the wall. So there are going to be holes in this wall. And when they get holes in the wall, things tend to leak out. So this is good bacteria, Lactobacillus reuteri, Lactobacillus rhamnosus. All those things are good bacteria. There's the bad bacteria. These are the bad bacteria, the proteus, the salmonella, the faecalibacterium, the things that are actually dangerous. You see, the color went away because these guys are bullies. They came in and they basically said, I'm taking over. How'd they get there? It's because we didn't feed these things the right amount of fiber. So I'd be willing to you guys, to bet with you guys, if we were to measure your microbiome level, that you'd probably have more of these guys than you do of these guys because you've got to feed these guys that fiber, that 25 to 40 grams a day. When you don't, you have this, and this leads to a lot of problems. You can see now that these guys says, I don't care what's, I'm going to eat the good guys. So it's killed all the colorful microbacteria because these guys are bullies and it's killed all the good guys. And it says, okay, that wasn't filling enough. I'm going to eat the wall too. But as it begins to eat the wall, it puts holes into that system. It puts holes into that wall, to those tight junctions. And then the bacteria themselves are too thick to get through. But I can guarantee you, the bacterial wall, which has the lipopolysaccharide, is getting through because it's in nanograms. So when it gets to this other side, an inflammatory response has to occur. The body sees that wall of that bacteria, which you see on this particular demonstration, is still being stopped, but its breakdown components are much, much smaller and they're getting through. So that's how we get the rheumatoid arthritis. That's how we get the ankylosing spondylitis. That's how we get all the autoimmune processes that they don't want us to really find out about. Because all we need to do is to eat right. And that's just a general term. I'm going to be more specific. So let's briefly go ahead and talk about it. Okay, so the inflammation has a lot to do, but I don't want to give you a whole kit and caboodle. You have to come back next week so we'll go into some other things about how to activate our GLP-1. I gave you the three most important things that GLP-1 does, and I gave you the three most important macronutrients that we have to take in, and you got to give me some sort of commitment as I begin to train you, operate on you, and coach you, that you'll kind of follow my lead. It's not going to be difficult. It's not going to be difficult to stay away from those things that turn off your cells. Because one of the whole points of GLP-1, as those who've taken it, or those who've taken it and have had some success, you all know that you don't have that desire anymore for desire for a lot of things, but especially for foods. That's weird. I don't even feel like eating that particular type of food. Give me the time that I need in order to correct your system, and we will correct it. All right, let's go into this is partially for my family out there. Chronic autoimmune and inflammatory diseases that we say we don't know where they come from. All right, so examples of autoimmune inflammatory diseases: rheumatoid arthritis, ankylosing ankylosing spondylitis, axial and peripheral spondyloarthritis, all these things, psoriatic arthritis, juvenile systemic lupus erythematosus. Everybody knows what lupus is, right? Okay. Inflammatory bowel disease. All these things are where our body is making an excess amount of inflammatory response to something that's typically there. How does it work in our joints? This is how the joints. Now, look at these as two systems. This is the system that's activated by people who are sensitive to gluten, and it's called celiac disease. But I would tell you, I'm sorry, somebody has their microphone on, I'm sorry. But anyway, we're eating a lot of wheat and products of that nature, and it's producing gluten, which breaks down to gliadin, and the gliadin activates something called zonulin. Don't really get into this, but what zonulin does when you eat gluten is that it provides a wedge in your intestinal cells. We want those junctions to be tight. When we eat gluten, and some people who have celiac disease and many people who don't have symptoms, will get this response. They'll be asymptomatic. And I say, okay, fine. If they're asymptomatic and this is going on and it's causing inflammation in my body, would it be best if I just didn't take any wheat or gluten at all? I think so. I don't find any reason that I need bread. I don't find any reason that I need certain grains. I can get all the protein, the fiber, and the healthy fats without all of this other stuff that has a long history of other problems as well, but we won't get into that. So it produces a wedge in between your intestinal tract, makes it leaky gut, increasing your permeability to the bacteria. Now, this is the bacteria here. And the bacteria, when they shed their coat, when they get destroyed, they make these things here. And I tried my best to make it a nice drawing, but this is ChatGPT did this. And it's called LPS, lipopolysaccharide. These things can't get through that wall. They're too big, but these things can. Those things are nanometers, nanograms. And they get through there and they get to the other side where they cause gut inflammation. And then they basically get activated and then the body responds to them. Some of us are known to have a gene, HLA-B27. HLA means, I'll pause again because I think I'm going too deep here, but human leukocyte antigen. B27 is just the place on that DNA strand, the allele, and they just named it in order, B16, 17, 18, and came up to B27. Sorry about that. But the bottom line is that when we get a stimulant, like a portion of this bacterial wall over to here, our immune system says, hey, that's not supposed to be here. Let's go get it. And the way it gets it is a cascade of events that packages it up and says, okay, we got it now. We've protected this sterile environment. When you have a ruptured colon, when you have a ruptured ulcer, when you have anything inside your abdominal cavity that's ruptured, that bacteria gets out of your colon, out of your small bowel, out of your stomach, into a sterile environment. Inside our abdominal cavity is a sterile environment. When the stuff from inside the colon gets into that sterile environment, it's a surgical emergency. I got to go in there. I got to clean it up. I got to patch that and close that hole up. The good bacteria patch their own holes. All right. Well, let me not straight back. Only got 5 minutes. So when this byproduct of the bacteria gets through here, the things that come to protect our body are these modulators themselves, and the tumor necrosis factor alpha, the interleukin 17. That's inflammation. That inflammation gets into the veins. That inflammation then goes into the sources that we're vulnerable. Our spine attachments, our bones like our knees, our eyes, our joints and our ankles and our wrists, and even our brain. Brain fog is caused by this inflammation. This is supposed to be there. This tumor necrosis factor, interleukin 17, is supposed to be there, but it's supposed to be there in moderation. We got tuberculosis, we got HIV, we got all these things come into action when we got serious infections. It's supposed to be there. The problem is that we're activating it all the time. And if you reverse engineer what I just told you, we're activating it all the time because we're feeding the bad bacteria. Because why? The bad bacteria like that pizza. They like that bread. They like that grain. It likes that cheesecake and macaroni and cheese. It likes that pasta. It likes it. The good bacteria don't like it so much. The good bacteria only likes and survives with fiber. So when we start feeding our gut all this other stuff, the bad bacteria flourish. We've already shown what the bad bacteria will do. I won't go back to that. All right. So why don't we hear more about this? This is my end of my slide. So those two things here, just remember those two things here. The tumor necrosis factor and interleukin 17 are our body's response to bad stuff that's gotten through that wall. Not the bacteria, but the secretory stuff of the bacteria, the cell wall. Our body's very, very sensitive to that because on this other side of this cell wall is a sterile environment. It picks up in our veins and our body says, oh, we can't let that damage anything. So we're going to corral it with tumor necrosis factor and interleukin 17, interleukin 17. All right. So what do the drug companies do? They say, okay, fine. We'll treat that. We'll treat that. And how do they treat it? They treat it with tumor necrosis factor alpha inhibitors. All right. Tumor necrosis factor alpha is going here and it's going to cause some joint pain, some spondyloarthritis, some psoriatic arthritis, some systemic lupus erythematosus. It's going to cause that because of chronic inflammation. All right. So we got a treatment for it, right? So we're going to treat it with tumor necrosis factor alpha inhibitors. You've all seen these. I don't know how many of you are all on these. Probably just my family, but Humira, Cimzia, Enbrel, Remicade. Then you got the IL-17 inhibitors, Cosentyx. So what I mean by inhibitors, what they do is they attach this and they attach the receptors and they basically block the action. So they block the activity of those things. And so you get less pain. Well, aspirin will do the same thing. Aspirin does the same thing. So you got a headache. You take an aspirin. You got a joint ache, you got a muscle ache, you take an aspirin. You take a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. These things are just monoclonal antibodies that attach themselves to the tumor necrosis factor and IL-17, and they inhibit its activity. They inhibit the inflammation, which inhibits the pain. Did you see where I'm going with this? The point being is that if you have a tumor that's causing you a headache, is the best thing to take aspirin? Or is it the best thing to take out that tumor? Is if you got high blood pressure and the high blood pressure is being caused by this inflammatory stuff going on in your system, is it best to go ahead and give you a blood pressure medicine, or is it best to take care of what's causing the high blood pressure? I would opine to you that it's best to get rid of the root cause. Now, why aren't they telling us that? Well, let's look at these same things here and let's see what they're making out of these things. Tumor necrosis factor alphas, the Humira. It's $740 per dose. This is 2024 stuff. $84,000 a year. If I wanted to do the same thing by getting rid of the root cause, I'd take some probiotics, I'd take some, take away the seed oils. I'll go ahead and make sure that we got some good bacteria and make sure, how much does that cost? I'm going to show you. It doesn't cost a whole lot. So their return on their investment by telling you to eat right ain't a whole lot, is it? But if I can get $740 a dose at $84,000 a year, Cimzia is $66,000 a year. And you know, and you can see that there are stuff, 76 to 80,000, almost $100,000 a year you're using to treat symptoms. I'd rather take an aspirin. I don't, but interleukin 17 inhibitors, $60 to $80,000 a year. All right. So probiotics and prebiotics. Probiotics are the good bacteria we want. We want to get rid of the bad bacteria by getting rid of the junk food, the refined carbohydrates, and the seed oils, and we replace it with good bacteria. But in order for that good bacteria to flourish, you got to have 25 grams of fiber every single day, men 40 grams of fiber every single day. If you don't get it, you got inflammation. Whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not, you got that inflammation. You got bad bacteria. Don't make me prove it to you. All right. So that don't go out there getting a probiotic from Costco off the shelf and say this got 12 types of strains in it, because there are certain ones that have been studied for this particular autoimmune process. The Elan, it has Bifidobacterium infantis 35624. It's specific for this study for this. So there are only a few that you need. So don't go out there and get some generic brand off. But the main way you can get these things is from natural food. Now, if you got a messed up microbiome, yeah, I can get you to get this. I've got a video out there that shows you how to make the yogurt, and I'll get certain types of these things, the culturelle, the Lactobacillus rhamnosus. The Lactobacillus rhamnosus is in this thing right here called mood. All right, on the back of it, it says Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG. All right, and so it has it in there. So taking these capsules every single day, this costs around about 20 bucks. But when I showed you the video of how to multiply this, you don't have to even spend 20 bucks for it. All right. The the Visbiome, that's a multi-strain probiotic and it's been shown to be effective in inflammatory bowel disease. Then you got the onions, the leeks, the legumes, which are the prebiotics. Remember, prebiotics are the fiber that feeds the bacteria. The bacteria are probiotics, okay? Then you got the resistant starches. Now, they're not the starch like the sweet potatoes and all. They're not those starches. They're the cooked and then cooled. So you can take a baked potato, you cook it, then you put it in the refrigerator for a day and you eat it cold the next day. Kind of potato salad like without all the other stuff. But that's called a resistant starch. That is actually pretty good for you. Your microbiome loves that stuff. Cooked and cooled potatoes, green bananas. Not sure how excited you can get about that, but then you got the psyllium husk and all the things that I talked to you about. That's easier just to get a couple of these little small spoonfuls put in your coffee throughout the day, and then have your dinner or your lunch have some onions on it, some legumes on it, some leeks on it, and some asparagus, some other fibers, and you'll get your daily dose. All right. All right. So probiotics versus the biologics. The biologics are the Humira. All right. So the Lactobacillus reuteri costs $30 to $40 for 1 to 2 months. All right. The Bifidobacterium infantis. These are all things that have been proven to fight against the ankylosing spondylitis and the psoriatic arthritis, the rheumatoid arthritis, the inflammatory bowel disease. These are all things that have been studied out there. They're not telling you about. Why? Because look what they cost. They cost $30 to $40 a month versus $740 a dose. The yogurt that I showed you all how, and I'll show it again. I'll put it on YouTube for you. It's $1 to $2 a batch. And then when you put it in there, it ferments. And so instead of getting hundreds of thousands of colonies per unit, you'll get billions of colonies per unit. So it lasts you. So that $30 to $40 a month you're spending can last for 3 to 4 months when you ferment it in yogurt. So you're not spending $30 to $40 a month. You're spending $30 to $40 every 3 months. 100 bucks a year, 120 bucks a year. So your overall microbiome strategy is probiotic plus prebiotic, the good bacteria, and the prebiotic, the fiber, and then fiber resistant starch. And less than $50 a month if you take the capsules every single day, but if you take each capsule, it's going to add up. I would recommend that we figure out the way, and I will show you how to make this into a yogurt that you can get every single day. So for the people out there who have those problems, that's what I want you to begin doing is to correct your microbiome because there's definitely studies that show that there's a direct tie to what's in your intestinal tract, what your microbiome is doing, whether you have healthy ones or whether you have the Proteus or the E. coli's that are bad. Some E. coli's are good, but if you have the strains that are bad or the Bacteroides strains that are bad, if you have those, you don't know it, but I can tell you which things you can do to make the bacteria good. So get a good diet, cut out the seed oils and the refined carbohydrates, basically replace your intestinal microbiome with good stuff and feed it. That's the most important thing that I said. You got to feed it with the fiber every single day. Because if you continue to eat the pizza, the pasta, the macaroni and cheese, all those things, you're just not doing anything other than giving the bad bacteria a nice, comfortable place to live. Okay? So basically, that's the bottom line. I think I still went over my time. And so I hope you guys got something out of this. We'll attack something else next week, another disease process. You guys put it in the chat box what you want me to talk about. But I'm going to try to cut these sessions down to an hour. So to summarize, and also at the end of this talk, I always like to ask you if you've learned something new today. If you have, say in the chat box that you learned something new. It encourages me. It makes me want to work harder in order to teach you something new. So if you did, I'd appreciate that. Kind of feeds my ego a little bit. All right. So in summary, the GLP-1 that we want to activate is strongly activated by 3 food products and 3 food products only: protein, fiber, and healthy fats, the avocados, the olive oils, the things of that nature. Okay. So we want to get back to basics. All right. Then we want to also know that our GLP-1 has 3 things, 3 functions that we need. It increases our satiety, making us feel making us feel full on smaller amounts of food. It's a good thing if you have excess fat, because then the body says, you didn't give me enough calories to survive today, so I got to go get some of that fat in that fat store and use it for the calorie deficit that you just gave, because you just gave me 1 boiled egg and some bacon. That ain't gonna cut it for the day. Even if you eat a little slice of salmon later on, that's a total of 800 calories. I need 2,000, 3,000 calories. So it's going to rob from the fat. That's what we want it to do. Then the second thing it's going to do is increase your metabolism. It's going to increase your need for calories. So it's going to take more fat. And then most important to me, it's going to decrease your cravings. Okay. So that's one point. And then the other point is all this stuff ties in with your microbiome. Because we talked about the microbiome as far as your autoimmune systems are concerned, but the microbiome as far as your weight loss is concerned is just as important. But I'm saying something over and over and over again that I hope is resonating to you. And I'm saying, eat healthy. Eat healthy. That's a generalized term, but I'm giving you the ingredients of what to do. Now, after surgery, I'll have control of that. And we're during that time, the coaching that we provide on the weekends, we're going to add some exercise in here too. The coaching that I'm providing you on the weekends will help you stay on track. Even later on, when you at a birthday party, say, "Hey, can you have some of this cake?" You're saying, "Well, yeah, it's been a while." And Dr. Duncan says, "Yeah, I can take some of this refined carbohydrates and these cereals, because I'm not going to rob you of what you think is pleasure in life. It's not pleasure to me, but it may be pleasure to you. I'm able to go to a birthday party and not have the cake. That's me. It's not you, maybe. But I'm not going to penalize you for that, nor is your body going to penalize you for that. It will penalize you for that if it's within that time frame that we say, now you gotta let your body heal first. So give me that time. Let your body heal first. And I can pretty much tell you're going to have some great results. Okay. All right. I'm going to look in the chat box and then I'm going to let you guys go. All right. So did anybody learn anything new today? Nobody told me to learn anything new today. Okay. Gut microbiome plays a big role in digestion, immunity, and even mood. Yes, it does. All right. Eat 25 grams of fiber. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate it. I'm going to do better next week, and we're going to try to keep it under an hour. Under an hour. That's a little tough, but we will do it. Okay. If you have any other problems, any other things, just kind of put it out there in the chat. This thing comes on YouTube, and we'll see you then. Okay. Have a blessed weekend, and I'll see you guys soon. Hopefully next week.